Thanks, David. Thanks for joining this podcast and doing it with us. Uh, Before we dive deeper, if you could introduce yourself, what you're up to, what you do, and why you do what you do.
Yeah, first off, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. So my name is David Bressler. I've worked in data analytics really ever since I graduated college in 2011. I'm sure you can do the math to back into my age. And so I've been doing data uh, analytics for a while now, focused really starting off on the corporate side. And then kind of over time, I got little frustrated working in corporate America, and then I hopped over to the agency side. For those that are listening, I definitely recommend starting off as working at an agency and then going to the corporate side, just because you're young and you've got all that energy. Working in an agency can definitely take a lot out of you. But during that time, really specialized in marketing analytics and
Mm-hmm.
website analytics, conversion rate optimization, finding ways to really improve your media efficiency through paid media and the website. And paternity leave. My second kid a couple of years ago
Mm-hmm.
had basically 6 weeks, and I've always kind of wanted to build something, and this was really on the cusp of what was about to come with the
Mm-hmm.
AI boom.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a few weeks. I knew I wanted to build something, and I was exposed to OpenAI,
Mm-hmm.
and I started playing around with it, and I noticed that it was pretty good at Excel.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started asking it questions, and it was generating the results. Not perfect, but
Mm-hmm.
pretty good. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, hey, this can be a viable, at least an MVP.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of years later, it's iterated quite a bit, but it's still today. It still kind of has that core competency as an Excel formula generator powered by AI.
Did you start off like a couple of years back, like entirely on this, or was it something that you were tinkering around and then, OpenAI basically just got you to speed up? What is it?
Yeah, I had no idea what AI was. I feel like even today, I still don't necessarily know what AI is. I never thought that I can be I don't know, software engineer or someone that
Mm-hmm.
can build not only just a startup, but an
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
AI
Mm-hmm.
software startup.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
never foresaw myself doing that. I was, been working in consulting for the past 7 years, and I thought if I were ever to do something, it would just be running my own consulting agency. So never thought that would be a thing until a couple of years ago, like I said, exposed to what was about to come with AI, and at that same time I was exposed to tools out there, that no code tools where you don't have to be a software engineer to know how to build software. So at that time, no code was also about to boom to the
Yeah,
point in which
yeah,
it did, and
yeah,
it still
yeah.
continues to grow. So really, all the stars kind of aligned at that time, in
Yeah.
which I had an opportunity to shift away from my full-time job and focus on something else.
Like you were doing this while you were still working at your day job, right?
Yeah, that was probably the hardest part of this whole journey. Was especially in a senior. I mentioned working in an agency is
Right,
stressful
right.
enough. 40 hours is definitely not the expectation. It's typically at least 50. And I was in a senior level position at the agency, very comfortable. I loved the people, loved what I did.
Yeah,
Got excited every single day. I used to say like every day is like or every day is like the first day, because I just enjoyed it so much.
yeah,
And
yeah.
had this all not played out, I would have definitely, still would have been there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, really, there was really no kind of playbook. And so, for the past, so I built the MVP in July of 2022,
Okay,
and
okay.
at that time, it was just a single page application. There
Mm-hmm.
was no login. It was
Okay.
just like a
Okay.
free for all. I say it was like the Hunger Games, like anything
Sure.
goes.
Sure. Sure.
I quickly racked up several $1,000s in OpenAI costs because people
And
were
everybody use
abusing
it.
it.
Yeah.
And then in September 2022, launched the full fledged site. At that time, the price was all of $299 a month. A lot's
Okay.
changed since then. But from September 2022 to exactly a year to the day, exactly a year to September 2023,
Yeah.
worked a full time job, two kids, loving wife, and building this startup. And then September 2nd, it was the first day where I really just had time to focus 100% of my efforts, aside from my family,
Sure.
on Formula Bot. And it's been awesome to see kind of the fruits of the labor and the impact that's made since then.
Awesome. So basically a 1 year of doing both things and then finally jumping off. Got it. And
Yeah,
like
I didn't have a whole lot of friends during that time. I like, you guys, that there's 24 hours in the day, and I love sleeping. I got two kids, so I don't sleep that much. And so, you factor sleep, you got another 8 hours of work, a couple hours a day for the startup. There's only so many hours in the day.
yeah,
So
yeah,
unfortunately, I had to sacrifice working out, which is something that I love to do,
yeah.
and my friendships. And so, recently, I've been kind of reconnecting with some friends that I hadn't seen in quite some time.
I see. I see. I think we all need to make that trade-offs, right? And obviously there are certain times when there's absolutely no way you can have a balance. Yeah. You gotta do what you gotta do. You told that you start off with a single page application, no authentication, right? So was a trigger point to continue to build upon when you started seeing a lot of use case, like you said you raked up some few $1,000s of OpenAI billing, right? So was that a trigger when you said, you know what, maybe this is something that seems to be working. Now I just need to double down.
Yeah, I mean, when I had built it, I did not foresee what was to come.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to build something, and it was more so building an MVP,
Mm-hmm.
not because I thought that it was going to grow into what it was, but it was more so like I just want to,
Scratch an itch.
get something going, just to get a little bit of experience in terms of software development.
Yeah.
And I think when I had built it, and at that time, it was such a novelty, right? There was no
Mm-hmm.
chat. It was 2 months before Chat GPT came out. It
Oh,
was a
okay.
couple of months before AI was everywhere in the
Yeah.
news.
Yeah.
And so when you see this tool, right, that's used by a billion people in the world, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this tool is 100% free. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, no login.
Mm-hmm.
It went viral overnight,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
even at that point, like I knew how easy it was to build, and
Mm-hmm.
so I knew that there was no kind of barrier to entry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so even then, I was kind of sus- suspect to the fact that it could be an actual business that I could eventually quit my job on.
Okay.
At that same time, though, there was another company. Company's called, or was called, Tersho, Tersho,
Okay.
and they had built the exact same thing, like to the T, exact
Okay.
same
Okay.
thing,
I see. Mm-hmm.
and they were funded by Y Combinator.
Oh.
And so that was kind of like the first touch of validation, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, if this Y Combinator company sees something in this idea,
Yeah.
they've probably done a lot more market research than I've done.
Then yeah.
So that was like, I would say that was kind of the first trigger,
Mm-hmm.
realizing that this could be something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And then, every day since then, just kind of adding new features every single day. And the product today is definitely not what the product was a couple of years ago.
Got it. Got it. You said that you used no-code tools while building it out, right? So I think you had referenced a specific product on, I think, one of the Twitter threads as well. So do you use it still the same stack? Like, do you still use that no code tool, or have you like gone into using the more traditional setups of React backends and all?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So probably up until probably 8 months ago, it was 100% no code. There was no middleware or any kind of third party technology aside from the email provider that I use.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But as the product has evolved and we're coming up on 900,000 users
mm-hmm,
since it launched. So it's a lot of information, right? And then
mm-hmm,
the product also lends itself to storing a lot of information, running,
mm-hmm,
robust data analysis.
mm-hmm,
So right now there's code within the application.
mm-hmm,
Bubble.io is
mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm.
um, is
No
the
code
is
tool.
the no code tool,
Mm-hmm.
and there's also a lot of middleware today that wasn't
Yeah.
there a few months
Okay.
ago.
Okay.
Also, as the product evolves, there's just a lot of kind of third-party integrations that were just
Sure.
bringing in
Sure.
a lot of information all into one. So, it went from basically 100% no code 8 months ago to, I would say, it's probably like 70-30 no code now.
Okay. Okay. So 70% is no code, 30% is the
Yeah.
middleware and the integrations. Got it.
Yep.
Got it. So you're still the single person, right? It's still a single person venture, right? You're the only one.
I mean, I say that lightly, like single person in the sense of full-time employees. But I do work with an agency called Zeroic, who is actually out of India,
Okay.
in which I started working with them probably about a year ago,
Okay.
at the point in which I wanted the product to evolve to a point where I needed to know how to code and I
Okay.
needed to understand these kind of third-party
Mhm.
data systems that much like Bubble, I'm sure I could have figured out eventually.
But
But
speed
it,
is something.
but speed, and then I mean, you got to go fast when you're a startup, but you even got to go faster when it's an AI startup.
Yeah.
And so I was fortunate enough to be making money from the app, but at the same time, I was also making money from my full-time job.
Yeah.
And so I had the capital at that time to hire an agency, and it's not something that every startup has an opportunity to do so.
Sure.
Oftentimes they have to raise, and so it sucked for a year doing both. But had I not, I probably would have been bankrupt because a lot of money went back into the product.
I see. And was this the first, second, third agency that you met, or like how did you end up, deciding that, what? Because it's a very tricky thing to pull off, right? I mean, you can still have, agencies and all, but it might not work out. So,
I very much learned you get what you pay for.
okay.
Um, and so early on, um, I, I was smart enough to be able to build a very basic MVP. And
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
then with really like a couple of weeks of learning this tool Bubble.
mm-hmm,
And then I got to a point where I'm just like, I want to keep building, but I don't have that much money. I don't have any
mm-hmm,
money at
yeah,
that point.
yeah,
I hadn't made a single subscription sale. And so I went on Upwork,
mm-hmm,
found some, uh, I'll just say cheap labor on
mm-hmm,
Upwork.
mm-hmm,
And I
mm-hmm,
quickly realized that you get what you pay for.
mm-hmm,
And so after a couple of months of trial and error on Upwork, I basically kind of made the decision. I was like, look, if I'm going to go all in on this thing, I need to hire some competent people.
yeah,
And so at that time, the owner of the agency, his name is Prashant. I think he had hit me up on Twitter after I was probably asking the Twitter world how to do something on Bubble, and he kind of
uh,
walked me through it. And since then his team has grown. Now there's three developers that work part time on FormulaBot, all doing different things. One person is responsible for kind of the design, another person is bubble architecture and setup, and then the other person is kind of overseeing the third-party integrations that we have set up.
Got it. Got it. So basically, you posting the right questions, raising them on Twitter, and then probably allowing the right set of folks to reach out. Understood.
Yeah,
Understood.
just the right person at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the product definitely wouldn't be what it is today had I not partnered with them.
Your journey or your story of building this formula about it is like incredible, right? Because this is pretty much what a lot of it's the holy grail of indie development, right? Everyone is looking forward to, figuring out that niche space product, which probably you build with three, four folks at max, and it kind of breaks. And this is the idea of software development, right? That you create so much disproportionate value out of some three, four folks, right? People coming through. So, yours is one of them, right? But if, let's say, now that you have worked on this for a couple of years, you've also seen a good 7, 8 years of analytics, data analytics and stuff, right? Now you're fairly well aware of software development, right? Uh, and you have this new frontier of AI and things changing, landscape evolving, right? If you had the opportunity, right, to build something else, or if you feel there's some other idea that people should be working upon, what would those two, three ideas be? And if
It's funny because like every other day I message one of the developers that I work with and I just like chat them an idea of like something that I just don't have time to build, or I'll like build a feature within the app that maybe I never actually go to production with, but I'll tell them like this should be like a product in itself,
yeah,
not like a feature, and then you just go all in on this thing. So I got a lot of ideas. A lot of them are in the AI space,
okay,
and so um, the AI space is exhausting. I feel like it's like the movie Interstellar. Uh, Inception, I think. Oh, yeah, I think it's Inception, where they like go to a different planet and they're on that planet, and every minute they're on that planet, it's like 7 years on Earth. That's
uh-huh,
kind of what it feels like when you're in the AI space. It's just like ever evolving, and there's not a day that goes by where I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm so far behind all these advancements in AI, and I'm just like, I don't know. It's a lot of self doubt.
yeah,
So if I were to build something, it probably wouldn't be an AI,
uh-huh,
just to have a sense of ease back.
uh-huh,
But I think that the ideas I keep kind of sharing with the guys I work with kind of focus around AI automation, of course, AI automation around invoicing.
uh-huh, uh-huh,
Invoicing, I feel like everyone has done or like sent an invoice or received an
uh-huh,
invoice,
uh-huh,
and it's a relatively like manual process.
uh-huh,
There's not a lot of tools out there that have kind of streamlined and automated that the process of invoicing, and then also invoices also come in all different shapes and sizes, right? Like I
yeah, yeah,
run ads on Google, I run ads on Facebook. They all contain the same pieces of information, right?
information,
Invoice number, a line item of how much things cost, the billing
uh-huh,
information, but it all looks different. And so I
uh-huh,
think there's a big opportunity to kind of wrangle it all in of all these different invoices and
uh-huh,
basically taking unstructured data,
uh-huh,
making it structured,
uh-huh.
and then kind of streamlining the entire billing process. I probably just gave someone an idea that they're going to run with, but I don't have time for it right now. If you do decide to build it and you're listening to this, feel free to reach out because I've got a lot of ideas.
Got it, got it. So, but yeah, I think the core theme being automation and then leveraging AI wherever possible, right? Uh, Boring at the same time. If it's a painful but needed to be done use case, then I think, yeah, it's probably, yeah, makes sense. And by the way, the movie was Interstellar, I think. Yeah, yeah,
It was Interstellar. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
because they're
I feel like
traveling
I always
planets.
mix those two up.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think I was confused with the analogy, but I think yeah, like the Inception is a dreams one, right? So
Yes. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Inception's the dream. Interstellar is the one we're on the
Where are
planets.
those
Yeah.
planets? Yeah,
Interstellar.
yeah, yeah. Awesome, awesome.
Both good movies.
Yep, yep. Great set of movies. You've made that transition, right? Like from data analytics to, let's say, now running a full-fledged, business, having your own team, pretty much, also you kind of also had a good, I would say, GTM or a marketing strategy, right? You had a very useful tool, free to use for all. Everybody started using it, and then thereby worked out. Uh, so what would your recommendations be for someone who's probably starting off in the data space or wanted to work in the data space, right? I mean, you had a 7, 8 year head start, right? So you could build upon it. But what if somebody's planning or working, just 1 year into this whole data space, right? What would your recommendations be? I mean, one you obviously gave out, which was that probably start off with an agency, try out different things, work across industries, probably, right? And then probably move to corporate. But besides that, are there any recommendations from your side now that you have this whole AI thing playing out?
Yeah, I mean, when I was just a young pup getting into the space, I, I and it's probably applicable to most people getting into the space. Obviously, you're going to lean to be a little bit more technical
Mm-hmm.
compared to other professions.
Mm-hmm.
Even as like a data analyst
Mm-hmm.
compared to a data scientist or a data
Yeah.
engineer, even the
Mm-hmm.
most basic of data scientists,
Mm-hmm.
they they're a little bit technical, right? Whether
Mm-hmm.
it's JavaScript or
Mm-hmm.
SQL or
Mm-hmm.
Python.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, even something like Excel, right? You got to be a little
Mm-hmm.
bit technical.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you have to kind of shift that mindset of, I need to be the most technical to grow in
Mm-hmm.
the company and be the best
Mm-hmm.
at my job.
Mm-hmm.
There's just, that was probably applicable a few years ago. And I think I
Mm-hmm.
contribute much of my success and being able to grow, in the agency that I was at,
Mm-hmm.
from an analyst to a senior director. I think, or especially early on, a lot of it was contributed to the fact that I was pretty good technically.
Mm-hmm.
But with the advancements of AI,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily needed anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think now, right, AI is democratizing,
Access.
more
Yeah.
so. It's democratizing a lot of things, but it's democratizing the how, right? Like, how do I get there?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think the focus needs to be more on the why.
Mm-hmm.
And then it also obviously helps to have a good understanding of what all of those different functions, even the ones that you mentioned, right? Software engineer, data analyst, data scientist. It obviously helps to kind of see the big picture and
Mm-hmm.
understand how all of
Mm-hmm.
those are connected. But I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like, if I had to make one statement, it's really just focusing on, like, what's the value add that you bring to the organization. It's not the fact that you're the best coder, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
chat
Mm-hmm.
gpt democratizes
Mm-hmm.
all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone really is the same kind of coder. You just have to know what to ask.
Yeah.
And so really it's being able to ask the right questions,
Mm-hmm.
whether
Mm-hmm.
it's asking a question to someone that you work with or asking a question to an AI bot.
Mm-hmm.
And that really comes with experience, right? Someone comes to you and says, "Hey, can you figure out why sales are down?"
Mm-hmm.
You can't just go to Chat GPT and say, "Hey, why are sales are down?" You have to have some sort of domain knowledge of the
Yeah.
business, right? You
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
understand segmentation. You have to
Yeah.
understand these kind of basic principles of data
Mm-hmm.
analysis or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
software engineering. And so and I think, if I think that there's also more of a big opportunity just with the advancements in AI and automation. It really should be a shift. If you are looking to focus on something, I'd probably recommend focusing not so much on reactive types of analysis, right?
Mm-hmm.
More so like what's about to come. So focusing more on like the predictive analytics. I think that there's a big opportunity there to
Mm-hmm.
grow. And I think that's still, even with all the AI and automation that's out there, I think that's a big opportunity that's going to grow, a big niche here in the next few years.
Got it. So, an increased emphasis on what and the why is the problem, right? what probably comes with uh, more experience, trying out more things. And then, yeah, I think as you mentioned, like if you get both of these correct, then if you know the right questions, then you pretty much figure out. And you also have formula bot. So I think Excel used to be a big edge. I knew and I used to remember that knowing these formulas, being able to move around Excel was a big skill. And now with tools like yours, a lot of that stuff is probably not as much valuable. Yeah, yeah. Interesting, interesting. Uh,
Yeah, it's funny because I'm always like trying to think of like a bold statement to put on the website.
mhm,
Um, and so I always think about a bold statement where it's like, you don't like stop learning Excel or like stop learning how to write code. Like
mhm.
just use this tool. Obviously, it's a very bold statement, but it's funny you brought that up because I'm always thinking like, I just need like a bold statement to really hook people in.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's the case, right? I think the success of your product is the statement itself that not everyone needs to be a good Excel coder, right? I mean, you know your way around it, so you now made that accessible to everyone, right? So uh, a good part of solving the problem is now knowing what specific formulas to ask for or what analysis to do, right? And less about what the formula is going to be. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, for sure. I mean, even going back to what you just said, and it kind of compounds with what I mentioned earlier, right? You can't just go to a chat bot, whether it's Chat GPT or Formula Bot, give it a bunch of data and say, find the answer for me. Because you know what it does? It gives you basic, you know, descriptive analysis. It says,
Mm.
here's the average for every single column. Here's the median. Here's an outlier. And here's, a distribution chart. You have to be very specific and know exactly what you want. But once you know exactly what you want, you'll be able to get your answer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think absolutely, and that's the only way to even know if what you ask for or the numbers make sense, right? Yeah. Were there any specific set of questions that I should have asked but I missed or probably didn't touch upon? Something which you feel would have been very relevant or where you probably would have added a lot of value from your perspective, from your learning.
I mean, I can be good, maybe talk a little bit about just the product evolution
Sure.
and kind of where I see the product. And it kind of goes back to where I see AI kind of getting into
Yeah,
in
yeah,
terms of the data space.
yeah, yeah. So, sure. So from a formula bot point of view, like how would if you had to define the evolution for the product, right? You know, what would you say are the major stages? Where are you at, and where do you see this going further, right? Like,
Yeah.
you would probably horizontally scale this to different domains, or keep adding more features, make it more, uh, you know, feature ready, and cover as many, area within the same space as possible, right? So, yeah, maybe if you could touch upon it.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, early on, right, it was called
Oh,
excelformulabot.com.
I see.
And
I see.
literally that's what it was. It was a one-trick pony.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was for the MVP for a few months.
Mm-hmm.
The only feature I had was, you can do it on the website, then you can do it directly within Excel and Google Sheets via add-on. And
Mm-hmm.
at that time, it was very early on in the AI space, and I started taking phone calls. I had all these VCs that were calling me because at that
Mm-hmm.
time there were like no AI startups. Now there's a billion, right?
Yeah.
And so, I didn't know anything about this space, and so I would just take phone calls, right? And so they'd ask me, they're like, what do you see, the evolution of the product?
Yeah.
And they all, I mean, I maybe took like 4 or 5 calls, but they would always ask that because
Yeah.
they're trying to understand, the total addressable market.
Yeah.
And I would say something stupid, or I was like, yeah, probably just like add more generators, like Excel and VBA and regular, like all these, generators.
Different. Yeah. Yeah.
But like, that's great, right? But those are features. That's not like this is what the product is going
Mm,
to be.
mm,
I think I've definitely learned a lot about kind of positioning your product.
mm-hmm,
And so, kind of evolution, right, is, this Excel AI generator, it did eventually add on um, those different code bases, SQL and
mm-hmm,
regex and those other
mm-hmm,
ones. And so
mm-hmm,
that's kind of the bare bone tool of what it was historically. And then over time, kind of incorporated more AI within spreadsheets. So I like
mm-hmm,
to say it's like Chat GPT inside your spreadsheets.
mm-hmm,
And then really on the cusp of new AI technology coming out, um, really the main product now is the ability to analyze your data with AI. And so started off as uploading your Excel files, and now it's Google Sheets and SQL databases and Google
mm-hmm.
Analytics and Google. Like we've got PDFs. We got like 8 different data connectors
Okay.
in
Okay.
which you can tap into your data and then through natural language ask it questions, and it will write Python and give you the answer. And so a lot of my time, a lot of the marketing, a lot of the agency that I partner with, everyone is focused right now on this product because I do foresee this, being bigger than what it is now. And so, I think I mentioned um, very kind of bullish on automation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And I don't, there's only a few tools out there that have kind of figured that out of like AI,
mm-hmm,
the intersection of AI, data analysis, and data automation.
mm-hmm,
And so right now, right, let's say, you got some data in Google Sheets. Well,
mm-hmm,
you can go to the website, copy your Google Sheet URL, paste in, and then start analyzing it within a minute.
mm-hmm.
But let's say you've got updates to that Google Sheet every single day,
Sure.
and you want to analyze it every single day.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
now, you're going to have to go back and forth of
Yeah.
re-authenticating and copying.
Yeah.
It's a very manual process.
Sure.
And so to really improve the user experience, right, is being able to automate that process.
Right.
And so that's a huge initiative right now. It's a couple of things, right? One, it's automating the data collection across these different data connectors.
Right.
But I'm also really trying to I don't want to say it's like another product, but a real kind of core feature
Mm-hmm.
within the data analyzer where you can analyze your data with AI, but really shifting a little bit more towards an ETL of being able to extract all this information,
Yeah.
transform it with AI,
Mm-hmm.
and then load it to whatever destination that you need, whether it's sending a clean impress file to your email address,
Mm-hmm.
storing that in some sort of like database somewhere, or fueling some sort of data platform.
Mm-hmm.
The ETL market is huge, right? But
Yep. Yep. Yep.
oftentimes, we were talking earlier, you need to be a data engineer to set up those pipelines, to
Yep.
know
Yep.
SQL, to know how
Yep.
to group and partition and summarize all this data.
Yep.
And so I think this tool, the vision that I have at least,
Mm-hmm.
is to kind of democratize all that, so that way
Yep.
you can transform your data just through natural language.
Yep.
And then after a few clicks, just automate that pipeline from Formula Bot to wherever you need your data.
Awesome. Awesome. So basically, diving deeper into the data supply chain or stack, if you want to put it that way, right? Probably start off with solving specific use cases within Excel and stuff, to now probably, at least if not all pipelines, if you can even move simple pipelines, right? And which is a secondary case, right? Like, I mean, typically from what I understand, companies typically have three stages of data setup, right? You have the first is the bare bone setup, which is what currently we probably have two, three analysts, for a small setup, right? You have two, three analysts putting together these, manually collecting data or fetching it from someplace, making sense out of it, right? Which is probably where, you try to make that faster, easier, right? The second step up is where probably you have a much larger scale. The amount of data that the firm is generating is large, right? So now you need to have proper pipelines. You need to ensure that they're stored in the right format, also consumable by any downstream process, right? And it's very cumbersome, right? I mean, it's been true. This is something that was true when I started off 6, 7 years back. It's still true now. The tools are better, but it's an equally cumbersome process. And a lot of it is about, just configs, figuring out a lot of archaic or, specific knowledge, which is you just need to figure out, get somewhere. So if you can help automate it, make it more and easier, right? If people know where the source is and where I need the output, right? So we can help that
Yeah.
happen, then yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. AI democratizes a lot of things,
Yeah, yeah,
and being able to set up a pipeline should be one of them, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so, you mentioned earlier, it's more about the why instead of the how.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so, oftentimes, someone like a data analyst or a
yeah,
data scientist,
yeah,
they are very intimate with the data. They know exactly every single, definition and nuance of every single column that's in a
yeah,
database,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
a data engineer
Engineer isn't
probably
aware.
doesn't
Yeah,
know all of that. He
yeah,
just sees
yeah,
it as, oh, this is a string, this is an integer, this is Boolean. That's what they see, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah,
being able to democratize that process of having someone who has a better domain knowledge of the data and being able to set up those things that a data engineer obviously would be, I don't think that they're going to become obsolete,
yeah,
but more so just focus on different things or being more knowledgeable about the business.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so in general, I think AI, it's going to change up a lot of things, but yeah, I like to think it'll allow people to focus on more strategic things and focus more on, the business application and less technical skills.
yeah, 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 yeah. Totally, totally. That's the experience. Like even here, whenever you have a use case, it's typically the business team that reaches out to the data science team, and the data science team reaches out to the data engineering team. That you know what, before even we get to solving the problems, we need some pipelines. So, probably cut one leg of, complexity there by allowing the data science team or the business team itself to able to pull together pipelines and work around it. Yeah, yeah. Awesome. I think it's great talking to you and seeing the future evolve, right? Really excited about what you pulled off. Like, I just hope there are more of these people from data analytics space venturing out and building their data products and companies. And hopefully they take some learnings from your journey and not, back off from not knowing, let's say, software development, right? I think once you figure out what you want to do, like it's pretty much logistics. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so just real quick about the whole no code movement. It's been an incredible journey, and I like to think I'm kind of on the forefront of that, even though these tools were created years ago.
yeah, yeah.
And it obviously helps to have, if you were to have one background,
Mm-hmm.
right, and
Mm-hmm.
you're building software and no code,
Mm-hmm.
the first background that you would probably want is being a software engineer
Yeah,
because it would
yeah,
just come to you like that, right?
yeah, yeah,
But I say, like, there's a lot more people that work in data analysis than there are software engineers.
yeah.
And so, aside from being a software engineer, if you're looking to build a no code, being working with data
Mm-hmm.
is probably the second occupation
Mm-hmm.
that the learning curve would be much smaller compared to any other background.
Mm-hmm.
Just because working in no code, it's kind of like working in Excel, where
Mm-hmm.
it's just a lot of logic building.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of like, working in ETL, right? If
Mm-hmm.
this, then that.
That,
It's like a
yeah,
robust, machine learning kind of random forest. Like if
yeah,
you do this,
steps, yeah,
then you do that. It's
yeah,
very logic based, and so if if there's anyone out there who is entertaining the idea, but they don't have a background in software engineer, neither did I, but I
yeah,
was pretty damn good at Excel.
yeah.
And so if you're good at Excel and you understand numbers and logic and database, then it's definitely something that I would recommend.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks for the vote of confidence. Yeah, yeah. And great. This is a great discussion here, and we'll stay in touch. And best of luck
Absolutely,
to
Abhinav.
Formula One. Yeah. Thanks, David.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.